This week on the Rabbit Hole Vibrations podcast, Steve and I are going to discuss the secret underground Dulce Base in New Mexico. Let's jump down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's, Holly. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. This is our like inaugural show. Even though we do other creation on other platforms for different spaces. This is going to be a fun project, and I think you're going to enjoy. Holly and I, we have fun discussions often. We can turn a tough subject fun, and we're going to hit on a lot of crazy stuff. Are we not?
We are. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And you guys, I am very familiar with the podcasting world. Holly does a lot of other creations as well, but she'll get this immediately. We will do some lives. So those of you familiar, we are hosting the podcast on Podbean, but you will obviously be able to find it on all platforms. You guys know that. But we will do some Podbean lives, and would love to we'll do that once we start seeing some people following on the Podbean app. But for otherwise, whatever platform you're listening on, feel free to come over to Podbean and comment on the Podbean or whatever pod player app you're using, and we can see it through Good Pods. So there's a little plug for Good Pods, soon to be a sponsor of this podcast. But yeah, so okay, guys, this is why we're starting with this one. So will it all be UFOs? No. And we put a little 30-second trailer out talking about this. Holly's got a bunch of again another good balance between Holly and I. She's got a bunch of other phenomena and other things paranormal that she wants to look into, and she also likes the side of things that I want to talk about, and I like the side of things she wants to talk about. And between us, it's like never ending. I started putting a list together, and we've just got. I mean, I already have 3 years worth of topics, so we can.
Yes, I think I probably have another 3 years, so I think we're good for a while. But I agree that the balance between us is great because you have a lot of knowledge about conspiracy theories and UFO, the alien side, where I have been looking into and a part of the paranormal.
That's Holly's way of calling me like crazy or something.
Oh,
You're
no,
all
because
about
I'm all
those
about
conspiracies.
the ghosts and the hauntings and all that. I've been studying since I was 13 years old. So
Yeah,
that's
and
my genre. So we're
that
good.
part.
We're great balance.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm excited because I haven't dove as deeply into those topics. So even though I'm familiar, I like being familiar with all the stuff out there. But even though I'm not totally as familiar as you, that's why, like you just said, good balance, and I said it too. But I'm excited to learn about the topics you have been deep into, just like this one. Like, I think it's fair to say that Holly knows a lot about UFO, UAP, what's going on with government programs. Stephen Greer will be talking about all this kind of stuff. But I think she was not aware of Dulce, and she even when we were starting, I think you said, I wonder how many other people won't be, and I'm kind of curious, you guys. Like, so put a comment and a like in whatever pod player you're listening to, saying, did you know about Dulce? Because today we are going to cover just scratching the surface, and I think that's why this is a good first episode for us, because there will be times we do maybe, a 2-part podcast, but this isn't like that. Dulce has layers, just like the secret underground base has layers. Dulce has layers. Each one is its own podcast. It's not a continuation. It's more of a story that branches off into other stories. And so I think it's a good place.
So much.
Yeah, I mean, we will get into the one episode for sure in the near future will be the underground facility itself, but I think we're going to put that off while we get a few out there. This is the basic story, and we're going to just kind of go through. Today we're going to use some audio clips here, and they're just short little ones, and then Holly and I will discuss it. But I want to use a couple because many people are aware of the underground base. Even people outside of the UFO community are aware of the underground base. Whistleblowers have come more forward on Dulce than they have on Area 51. And one of the big differences between the two is that a lot of it is dismissed, of course, but a lot of the evidence that has come forth on Dulce isn't just hearsay. It can be proven. Not all of it, but a lot of it, which makes it scary because the denials come even on the stuff that then get proven. So it's like when that kind of thing happens, now I'm very interested in the conspiracy.
And it is a conspiracy. The whole alien UFO existence of any of that is all basically been a conspiracy theory because the government has been no, 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 no. And now that all these other people are coming out, I mean, you don't have all the people that have come out and said the exact same things about abductions and this and that. I've seen this. There's no way that that could possibly not exist when you have so many. So,
exactly. And that's why I think our
same thing with this
timing of
space.
this podcast is also perfect. Again, it won't all be alien, but a decent amount will. And there's been alien podcasts and UFO podcasts forever, and respect to the people that have been doing it all these years. Because I've been a believer for a long time. I've had my own situations and thought-provoking moments and things like that. But there are people who have been in the trenches at this since the 80s. Ham radio, podcast, pre-podcast. So, I mean, to them, respect, because I kind of always knew, maybe some of them seemed a little too far for me or whatever, but I like taking it all in because I always knew there's some reality here. And I think by the end of today, if you're not familiar with Dulce, we will at least have you by the end of the episode questioning, wait, I'm pretty sure this all is true, or like at least we're sure something's going on. So before we fall too far behind, about 10 years ago, Dulce's had a lot of people questioning a lot of things about it, and for a long time. About 10 years ago, it started making some mainstream whistleblowers. We had news people who were accidentally reporting news, and that footage is leaked, even though it didn't on live stuff. We'll get to all that kind of stuff, but it is definitely one of the conspiracy theories that a lot of people, even non-conspiracy people, can jump on board with because there are some facts here.
Not to mention there have been some deaths associated with this that were supposed self-inflicted that they don't really believe are. The government tries very hard to cover things up, and I don't know exactly who knows what, but there's something here for sure.
Yeah, and that part we will get into when we do an episode on the actual underground base itself, because that will be a whole episode, the whole seven levels, which you guys might not already know about, but you're going to learn about here. So we're going to start. I'm going to play this little audio clip, because one thing you need to understand is if there is an underground base, a good point that's made by a lot of people, I've heard this everywhere, is there, and I mean, this is very clear, there needs to be power, there needs to be water, and there needs to be ventilation. Now, in another future episode of this podcast, you guys, I am going to talk, and I'm actually going to use a clip from Hamilton's Pharmaceutical. You guys might know a guy named Casey. I will only use his first name. I know him personally. I've known him for a long time. And he and Derek Lemaire, if that rings a bell, I won't say any more, but in that episode and what we will talk about, ventilation out of mountains is more than possible. And in almost every case, it is impossible to find it. So before we really get in, I want you knowing that clearly there needs to be power, there needs to be water, but a lot of the tip-offs relating to Dulce, to the people who aren't firsthand there in the Navajo reservations that are there, who have seen it and don't like talking about it, but to the people who have gone to try and find it, they're like, there must be venting that you see in a mesa. It's very easy to hide that if you're good. And we're going to go through this. So let's start this and we'll get to the first part here.
We don't even know that there's actually a base here. That's as simple as it gets. And that's where personally I want to start. Okay. If I see something that leads me to believe that there is a base there, Then I'll think about what's going on in the base and who's running it.
When you hear the stories, when you're on the Indian reservation and see what there is to see, when you do that, I think your minds will be open to the possibility that something incredible and possibly very sinister is going on there.
We're in Dulce, New Mexico, about 200 miles away from Albuquerque. Our goal is to locate a secret underground base where the government reportedly has been housing aliens and carrying out strange experiments.
My name's Ken Storch, and there's definitely something strange going on in Dulce, New Mexico.
My name is Bob. I'm an undercover operative, and Dulce is the ultimate undercover operation.
Okay, so I know we're not far. The rest of the clips get a little more detailed. But so I want to make sure I'm not jumping ahead here. So the original story is that you got to understand Dulce, New Mexico. They said it's just north of Albuquerque. So that puts you in it's a little west too, to be honest. So, because if you go directly north out of Albuquerque, you actually hit Santa Fe and then you hit the highway to Taos. So Dulce is a bit off to the west of that, but the mesa, Archuleta Mesa, you can see. And then there's a bunch of other mesas too. I don't know who remembers the movie Steven Spielberg, the one about they used the Devil's Tower. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I was thinking E.T., but Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That was done at the Devil's Tower. That's a big, big mesa. And there's a lot of theories about why mesas would be good. They're circular. You can get into them. It's not as hard as a mountain. And you don't have people hiking around it so much. So, but the original reports that came through for Dulce said that, and this is kind of weird. This was state patrol. This was reservation patrol. This was Air Force had all called in a reported. This was the first time it was publicly exposed in a big way. News was out there. They immediately said that a test UFO that we had developed at Area 51 had crashed into the top of the mesa. Now, I don't know why we would be so stupid as to say that at that time, because that was a time when the government was still playing, no, there's no UFOs. But they're like, no, we're testing alien technology. I got to ask you, Holly, because I'm sure some people just look right over this. How did people not pick up on? Well, if you're making and testing alien technologies, aren't there aliens?
The government did admit to that, yes?
Yeah, I mean that it was their test alien equipment. But then what happened was that got retracted quick. They got really scared because that was out there. News, and again, there's news clips. You can find all this stuff. But immediately, within hours, they changed it to, sorry, a fighter jet crashed.
Okay, I just didn't realize. I knew the story, but I did not realize that the government had said yes to either one, I guess. I mean, I'd heard this change, but I guess I thought it was local people said it was this or that. I didn't realize it was the government. Wow. Okay.
Well, so that's what I'm saying is that there were so many people so there's 3 Navajo reservations right there, but there's one big one at the bottom of Archuleta. I actually happen to know this area well. So, but there's everybody at the Indian reservation, this one had already seen so much activity over the years, and they had got kind of shunned for talking about it, to the point that we were very used to that. I mean, anybody who's had an encounter, especially up until semi-recently, you probably kept it to yourself. Because if you did share it, everybody is ragging on you. Things are crazy. What are you talking about? So I don't know. But they all saw it. The reporters that were out there, some reporters had caught things that, as we know how the government used to deny it, they were saying, well, that's just a something tinfoil and the way the sun caught it, and it's a weather balloon and like all their crap. But the bottom line is there was people who caught this, and it's one of the few times caught. So the government just went ahead and said that was that might have looked like alien technology, but we had made that. That's why it came from Area 51. But
Well, and they say that there's a spot on the top of the Archuleta Mesa where the trees are all bent in one direction as if something had
exactly.
landed there.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because if it was a fighter jet, that wouldn't be the case.
Correct.
But that'll also lead us down another rabbit hole, no pun intended, that we will need to talk about crop circles. How are crop circles done? Because some of those are beyond intricate and they're done in an hour. So I know everybody's got these theories about, well, it's just people with tractors doing it. The way that those are done, that would be pretty amazing if anybody's that good in that.
I'm very, very interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother one too. But let's move on with the story, because it gives us more to talk about while we're in our time zone. Sorry for my voice, you guys. This is our first show, and my voice is a little dead.
Can you just start us off and tell us how this whole story began?
I met Ann West. She told me that she knew a security officer there. His name was Thomas Costello. Supposedly he escaped with 7 minutes of videotape, 25 black and white photos, and about 100 pages of information on what was going on there. He contacted Ann, who was a longtime friend of his, and said, what I want you to do is bury this information. I'll contact you every 4 months. If I miss 2 meetings in a row, then I want you to take that information and expose what's going on there. When she was shown the photos before he put it in the box, he asked her to make some drawings. And these are the original pencil drawings that she made.
What is there at Dulce from these drawings?
What's underground has 7 levels. There's all kinds of experiments going on. Womb submerged in sort of yellow liquid, looks thicker than water. Dozens of creatures in each womb. Can't count the tanks. 3 fingers, 2 toes, not human.
All we do know, or at least believe from the photograph, is that there's experimentation with human beings.
Correct.
There are aliens who are living at Dulce.
Correct.
And we are working with the aliens at Dulce.
Correct.
Whoa.
So this obviously is what will take us down the rabbit hole of what is the facility. So if you guys are following there, I mean, we haven't even gotten into it, and we're going to have to jump ahead here a little bit because we don't want to start falling too far behind. But that person was John Lear. John was the initial person to get actual public documents from a guard at Dulce. There had been, again, 20 years of UFO people thinking Dulce has something major going on. They already knew, but these were the first official documents. And so that does lead us into the next clip, which will move us along here. And then we'll probably have to discuss this a bit.
The base is underneath Archuleta Mesa. Supposedly it consists of 7 levels, each level increasing in security as you go lower and lower. The information that was provided to us by Thomas Costello gave us very complex floor plans that had been drawn out. Here we're looking at the first level of Dulce. The central hub here is security, which extends all the way down. It's the hub of these concentric ring circles. Each area is connected by corridors and passageways. Level 2, they strip you down and take all your personal clothing. They weigh your body. They take biometric scans of you and everything. So in case you're trying to smuggle something out, they know exactly what you ate. They know exactly how much you should weigh. They know if you have something in your stomach.
They're really taking it to extremes.
Well, you would have to with something like this. They're frightened that it would be discovered that humans were being experimented on for genetic research. Well, level 3, we have the computer bank area. This is where they contain all command, control, communications, and intelligence.
Level 3 doesn't sound very dark. When does it all start?
Well, it starts getting more interesting at level 4. Here's where they get some of the more exotic research. They've studied the human aura, all aspects of telepathy, hypnosis, dreams,
Guys, wait, hang on a second. Wait, are you talking about extraterrestrial visitors that are working with our government?
Both.
So
In your mind, don't you just picture these little gray aliens standing there next to our scientists in their white lab coats and, hey, can you pass me that beaker over there?
to be honest, like,
Just crazy.
I mean, this is a good time for me to say this. To be honest, when I first learned about aliens, I was young. I was growing up in Michigan, and it was a little fearful to me. Like, some people instantly gravitate. It might have been too young of an age, but as soon as I got a little older, I was like, there's no fear. Like, I was completely on board. The more and more I knew, and the more people I talked to who weren't just like so nonsense I couldn't get on board, because I have talked to those people too. I gotta say, like, I have talked to some people where I'm like, maybe everything I do think is wrong, like, because they're so out of touch with everything. It's not just out of touch with this topic. I'm talking about, like, they're gone. And so, but I do know a lot of people who are experts in this stuff, and I've had many a conversation with them, and it's not like they're trying to do things that we see on TV and stuff and prove to me something. They explain things in a manner where I can go, well, yeah, that totally makes sense. And so I feel like every year that goes by for me, not only am I sure that this is happening, not this specifically, but way more, let me say it this way, way more than the government recently saying, yeah, we have known about UFOs, but we're going to call them UAPs. Let me just tell you, that's not, people would say at least they're scratching the surface. No, they're not. To me, that's not scratching the surface. Will be getting into some of the deep stuff that's been going on for a long time. Because I honestly, it was maybe the 80s. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ollie, but in the 80s, I think, I mean, for fact, that's when most abductions were reported, for one. Those people were chaticized like you wouldn't believe. I mean, they were like, you crazy, stupid person. You're going to the nut house. What are you talking about? I mean, so they learned to shut up. It was a really sad situation. But most people did not believe in UFOs in the 80s.
Right.
Even though, whatever, maybe there wasn't as much activity. Maybe, I don't know what it was. I mean, because I honestly believe the activity was probably still there. However, nowadays, I believe way more people believe there is than not. And by way, I mean way more.
I agree. And I think a lot of that is because you have these pilots, the ones that were at the congressional hearing last July that came out. You have more credible people to where if Joe Schmo that lives out in the country says, oh, yes, I was abducted. Yeah, I can understand, people may not give that any credibility. They don't know him. They don't know his background, his mental health, whatever. But when you have these people coming forward that are leaders in our military that are saying, yeah, this is what's happening. It gives it credibility, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So we need to watch a little more of what I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Excuse me, Mr. John Rhodes. John Rhodes is, by the way, he is one of the utmost experts, the guy speaking here, on the subject of Dulce. He's really taken this in. So a little more from him, then we'll come back.
They call level 6 Nightmare Hall. This is where all the genetic experimentation is occurring, where they fuse animals and humans together.
John Lear showed me his drawings of the Costello photographs, in which there were body parts in that of morphed human beings in cages.
About 2 or 3 years ago, a mouse with a human ear growing out of its back. Do you remember seeing that?
I saw that.
Remember, the military-industrial corporate complex is actually about 30 to 40 years ahead of us. So that means that at the time when these came out, chances are they were successfully fusing humans and other animals together as a precursor to what we're seeing now. The human test subjects are housed in level 5. They're taken in. The experiments are done on level 6. Then they're transported to level 7. This is the horrific area. Guards, like Thomas said, that they had the cages. They were told not to talk to anybody. These were half men, half other animals.
Who's doing these experiments?
Reptilian humanoid beings, the small grays.
You're saying there are terrestrial reptilians down there, and there are gray aliens down there, and there are humans who are willingly helping to perform experiments on other humans.
When you absorb all of the Dulce information, you have to ask yourself, do you dare risk doing research on mice where if you could use a human being, you could advance your research by 30 years?
I mean, I got to ask you, Holly, like, I mean, no matter what, if, you know, you're listening right now and you're like, and you haven't heard of Dulce, if you have, you're probably trying to see where our level of knowledge is at. And maybe you're learning something, maybe you're wanting to comment. Please do on whatever pod player you're listening to. But for those who are just learning and going, wait, what? In this day and age, Holly, do you at all put it past our government that if they were, because there was a time where they just said, yeah, we do it with mice, but there's no way we would do it with a human.
Well, they kill humans to keep their secrets. So no, I absolutely do not put it past them.
Yeah. And I mean, so again, guys, we're not even to the points of, we're not even to the point of, you know, getting into this, the darkness. I mean, like, cause I mean, level 6 is called Nightmare Hall. But if you noticed, he didn't give level 7 a name other than just explaining what it is. And to me, level 7, if you call level 6 Nightmare Hall, I don't know what you call level 7.
Well, and I mean, he tells us a little bit about what's in level 7, but he really doesn't go that much into it. I think it's so horrific that I don't know. I would like to hear more about that for sure.
And I mean, and that's, again, guys, that is why Holly has left me a comment here that I was echoing. Hopefully I'm not anymore.
No, you're good.
Okay. We don't want to get that wrong on the first episode, guys. But so we will, I mean, we're going to, that's why there will be, again, the last time I'll say it, another podcast on this, because the facility itself needs to be talked about. And the levels need, even the ones that didn't sound exciting, those need to be talked about, because it's this whole base is like the way that they strip you down naked and measure you or weigh you.
Right. And then they're going to know they gave you a slice of pizza. They know what that weighed. So then they're going to adjust your weight to that slice of pizza. I mean, they are very, very meticulous because they don't want somebody to stick a piece of paper into a capsule and swallow it and take it home as whatever proof.
Well, it's not even just the piece of paper. It's that, like, they're talking about the Greys and they're talking about reptilians, the two most commonly known alien races that even people not that into the phenomenon have heard of. But what they don't mention is that, and we will get into this when we talk about the facility, but there was a kind of a war down there. And between kind of everything, it wasn't one thing against another. It was kind of like just, it kind of happened. And what they're not talking about are the shapeshifters. And the shapeshifters could facilitate themselves into your body, but it would change your mass.
Oh.
So they're even worried about, like, how you talk about ghosts, Holly. They're even worried about like the soul of a shapeshifter coming in. That soul has weight. I don't know if you'd call it a soul, but the shapeshifter moving into you has weight.
Interesting. I didn't realize.
Or has weight that can be seen. Like, they would know, wait a minute. So, I mean, the way they do it, you guys, I mean, like, maybe we'll get to it, but I'm just letting you know that they weigh you naked when you are, I mean, clearly this facility, and it's not at all past me, because this facility, if it does the things it does, I'm surprised that's all they do. I mean, that sounds like you're getting away actually kind of easy. I mean, I would expect like anal exams and all kinds of things.
Right. Well,
like just everything.
Is it every scientist that goes to work there has to do that every day?
Yeah, I mean, I from what I've heard, there are some who live in the facility like a week at a time. like
Well, that would be
kind of
easier.
like one of those week on, week off jobs. But
Right.
I mean, but how awesome is your week off if that's what you do for a living? I don't know. I can't see like going and having a nice weekend. I don't know. But let's move a little bit ahead here with this.
In my profession, you have to focus on physical evidence. And the physical evidence that we found doesn't come from outer space.
Can you tell us what you found?
Gas masks, monitoring instruments, radar shaft, and helicopter activity. But I found out they were coming and marking the cattle ahead of time. And then later on, they'd hit him with a tranquilizer. And then they'd take the lymph nodes out of it.
The lymph nodes were consistent from each mutilation case.
Then they would take more stuff out to kind of confuse people.
And what about this argument that it's just coyotes or ants or some wild animal that's killing the cattle?
Coyotes don't wear gas masks.
Gabe Valdez is giving us a whole new approach to the cattle mutilations he investigated. His investigation told him these were not extraterrestrials at all, but he actually saw military helicopters over these mutilation sites.
During your years of investigating cattle mutilations, what is the most anomalous evidence you came across?
Well, they mutilated this animal about 40 miles east of here, and we could tell where the aircraft came to. They didn't do the whole process, and they left a fetus inside the animal.
A fetus?
Yeah.
Look, a fetus, a cow fetus.
No, it looked like a human, a monkey, and a frog. It didn't have any bones in the head. It was all full of water.
What was the size of this fetus?
Probably about 42 inches long, but something went wrong with whatever they were doing.
What you're implying is that cow was being used as an incubation chamber for a cloned creature.
Exactly. You really had to retrieve him back in order to see them.
So there are eyes underneath
that
first skin going up.
Look at the ear.
That's an ear?
Yeah, that's the ear. It's an ear of the human.
What happened to the fetus?
We took it and had it analyzed. It was very confusing to the veterinarians.
Did the vet identify anything as human in that fetus?
Yeah, I think he could tell the eyes were.
So for those that don't know, this is Gabe Valdez. Gabe is a retired, very well decorated state patrol officer for the state of New Mexico. He mentions that he's seen some phenomenon, but he really locks in on his job as a police officer. And a lot of his findings really kind of come to the fact of, something just like everybody else, something really, really messed up is going on here. But he's more of the camp of this is the people doing it.
Gabriel Valdez, though, he was the officer who was put in charge of investigating the cattle mutilations back in the late 70s, which is really when all this began with the cattle mutilations. In the late 70s, the farmers were complaining. They put him in charge. And unfortunately, instead of finding answers, he was coming back with just more questions.
Right. And
the other thing that
and the way that they were.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, another thing that I find very interesting about that is normally if you have a dead animal like a cow laying out in a field, the animals, the scavengers, the coyotes, whatever, are going to come and eat that very quickly because they're out in the wild. They're hungry. The bodies of those cattle were left untouched by scavengers for weeks. That never happens. So there had to be something wrong with their body or something maybe after they had been mutilated that they were touched by. Something crazy was going on with those, or they would have been eaten.
And Gabriel doesn't know, or he probably does know, but anything I've ever seen from him, I've seen from other people who were involved in those cow mutilations, who have looked into it saying, we don't have instruments that can do this. How did they pull this out without any hole in the body? Like they'd pull a heart out of a cow too. Like a lot of this from Gabriel is like showing like mutilated ones. There were unmutilated ones that were missing parts. Gabriel's talking about like one of the mutilated ones had a fetus in it that was one thing we can all say for sure, it wasn't a cow fetus. or a cattle fetus. So, I mean, like, what is going on? We've now talked about, and again, you guys can go look that one up for yourself. That's why I love some of this. If you don't know about the mouse in the ear, Google that. Go find it for yourself.
That's what I was just going to
It's
say.
real.
Because they can't see this like we can right now. They do need to go look that up because that is quite something to see.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like, because a lot of people probably don't know about that. Even if some people have heard our government does some mutant testing kind of thing, I don't think that most people know about that.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I agree.
Maybe a lot of the listeners to this podcast will. I don't know. But the general public, I don't think they are familiar with that.
Or even if they've heard about it, maybe they haven't seen it. And seeing it is different.
100%. So yeah, I mean, I like the fact that we're getting another viewpoint from an officer who definitely, like, isn't saying there is no alien stuff, but I don't think, I've seen other pieces with him too. I don't think he is of where we're hearing from other people, and it's not that one's wrong, one's right, but he's not about there's grays and there's reptilians and there's humans, and he's just, I think he knows there's a base, something weird's going on here, and why is there a very weird fetus in this cattle? Huh. Kind of thing. Like, that's his is more the logical side of a state police officer that I think ended up turning him, though, and making him go, listen, I don't know about all this alien gray stuff, but I'm not going to doubt anything coming out of there anymore. That's kind of my take on him. And I mean, and that's, I guess my point is, that says a lot for a cop. I'm surprised most police officers would be like the Air Force has been forever. All of a sudden, everybody from the Air Force wanted to talk. Come on. It's like, you guys have known forever. I mean, I know they wanted to talk, but whistleblowing's a big thing. So let's keep onward here.
My name is Darren Vigil Gray, and I've seen a UFO come from the area of Archuleta Mesa.
Let's say you were hired by the government to design an underground base. Would there be any reason for you to pick Archuleta Mesa?
It's a mesa. So you've got a starting point where you know where the stratigraphic layers of rock are. So you've got a structure to begin with.
According to the specifications that we've been given for this base,
how much of a diameter does this have right here?
The base can extend up to 4.87 miles.
4.8 miles. Is that correct?
4.8 miles diameter.
That's the diameter of the base.
That's about the size of the mesa. That would fit within the structure that you're talking about.
That is very big.
The snowcat has just dropped us off at the top of Archuleta Mesa. We're finally here, over 9,500 feet, overlooking the entire Jicarilla Apache Reservation. The view is spectacular, and I can't help but think that if there's any truth to this story, that there is an underground base here. We couldn't be any closer to it.
There's a lot of things out here that we see flying in the sky. I'd rather keep them to myself. There's a lot of people around here that does the same thing.
If you leave the reservation with these stories, people don't believe you.
They think I'm nuts.
What have you seen up here?
Me and one of my cousins, we were walking the edge. We spotted a hole on this side.
A hole?
Now I hear things that it's a van or things like that.
I did see something interesting just down below. It was a mound of snow, and there's an outcropping of rock just on the southern face of it. And it had an interesting marking on it. Saw it with the binoculars. When I took the infrared camera to it, it looked completely normal.
While Kevin scanned the mesa with the FLIR camera, I pressed Richard a bit more about what he knew about the area. He began telling me about a tunnel system that he knew existed around here.
We got one that's over here on the east side from us. It's just a split of this water down here. It goes, down about 14 miles into that mountain you see over there.
There are more tunnels than we know about.
Yeah.
Is there any way you could take us to the holes?
No, I'm not going to go there.
When I pressed him further, he got a little uncomfortable, and he just said that's not his way. If reality is a consensus of people agreeing on seeing something, then we have to start paying attention to the reality of the Jicarilla Apache, that they are seeing UFOs, and this does appear to be some kind of UFO area.
Isn't that crazy that they're so afraid they won't even take him and show him where the holes are? I mean, I assume it's fear. I think it's fear.
To be honest, if all of the listeners know what a mesa is, if not Google one, but a mesa just looks like a tower coming straight up. It's not like a mountain where you see the grade and what's your route to get up it. They usually just kind of tower straight up. A little bit of a slope there, a heavy slope, but it really just jets out of the ground. And I think there's 3 Navajo reservations around the mesa. And I honestly believe that, first of all, the Navajos aren't going to share that kind of stuff about anything with people outside of their reservation. All Indian tribes are kind of known to do this. And in fact, not to go down a rabbit hole, but, that is something that we might want to discuss one time, because all these will be different. Sometimes there will be no audio that we're playing and just discussions. But here's the thing. Indians were here before any of the settlers. So the way that they have their, their medicine, their ways of life, everything, maybe it makes me question the Mayan, from Mexico, the Mayan calendar. These are all different rabbit holes, but like the Indians in this country that have been here, the Apaches, all this, they don't like sharing with us, like their information even. I mean, for a lot of reasons, they don't like our government, but they don't like sharing their stuff with us. I think they happen to potentially know a lot more than us. It's just, I don't know. I've been around a lot of Indian reservations. I've been to some sweats and done some other things on Indian reservations where they're very awesome. They're amazing people. They're very in their ways. But they don't seem to be forthright. And I don't mean they're lying to you. It's just like, maybe they don't want to share it. Maybe they don't want to be called crazy. I don't know.
Or maybe they don't want a billion people coming to their area either, looking for this stuff.
Well, I mean, that one I might challenge, because all the Indian reservations I've ever been through all want you, even if they, some of them have casinos or whatnot, but they all want you to give some business. They'd love some people passing through. So like I think it goes to what you're saying. I think this is straight up fear. I mean, because I've read other interviews too where they can't get anybody from these reservations to talk at all. And so that just leads me to believe fear. And it also leads me to believe that it's not fear of nothing at all. I mean,
they've been around long enough to know what to fear, I think.
Yeah. So let me play this last piece. We'll discuss it so that we have enough time to kind of finish this and bring it all together here.
Although we've seen some mind-boggling things at the Dulce base in New Mexico, if there's any doubt about whether a base such as Dulce could exist, we are here at White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, the home of one of our government's best-kept secrets.
We're here at the Greenbrier, and the Greenbrier was a beautiful hotel built in 1913, but underneath the Greenbrier and set into the hill is the congressional facility for maintaining continuity of government in the event of a nuclear war.
The construction was between 1958 and 1961, and on top of the bunker is the West Virginia wing.
About how big is the bunker?
112,544 square feet. Best way to keep a secret? Hide it in plain sight. It's over 16,000 square feet. Thousands of people have been in here, but they didn't know they were actually in a part of the bunker. This room was used for exhibits, medical exhibits, book exhibits, parties.
When the time came that the government had to continue, what did this room become?
The room would have been subdivided into 24 offices for the support staff of Congress.
When did you first learn
for real what this was.
The day the article appeared in the Washington Post magazine.
Until the Washington Post broke the story, nobody knew that this hotel was cover for an underground facility, literally a bunker, to house the legislative branch of government in time of war.
We've spoken to people who've talked about cattle mutilations, who've actually seen black helicopters hovering over the countryside, a fetus in the womb of a mutilated cow, but it's not a cow fetus. What is it?
What is it indeed?
Okay, Holly. So we have 5 minutes to kind of wrap this up. And then on next week's episode, we're going to do a little talking. We're going to talk about UAPs, right? On the next one. Or am I wrong? I mean, this was your chance to say, no, we're doing this. But I think I think UAP would be a good one because it'll be a step back, but it'll allow us to have a little more free engagement with you guys to let you get to know our personalities. I just wanted to make sure you got a feel for what we're going to be doing. And this is going to be one we revisit a lot. So I think it's good we covered the basics of it. I don't know I think that something extremely true, and I want to know what you think, Holly. At the end there, I thought that was a great way to bring it all around about the Greenbrier, because
yes.
I mean, in 3 years, they made where Congress will go in a nuclear war while the Greenbrier was an operating hotel.
Well, and speaking of bunkers, isn't there one underneath the Denver airport that we'll talk about in a later episode as well?
Yeah. I mean, and if you guys are joining this and you're listening right now and you're thinking, oh yeah, Denver, I've heard that, because a lot of people have heard that one a lot. We'll take the most updated information too, because there's some new stuff even that has been released on that. So,
well, and another rabbit hole that has to do with this that was not mentioned in this particular episode that you aired today is when they were talking about the tunnels. Supposedly, there's 1,400 miles of tunnels that connect 129 secret underground military bases. So Dulce would be
14. No, it's not 1,400 miles because it's more. It's the trains that they can put down there can do 1,400 miles per hour.
Okay.
But the whole country connects Seattle to, I mean, not every city, you guys, but we will, again, I had that down even. I have that. Here's some of the things we'll have to be discussing regarding Dulce. Maybe more is that I had the underground facility, obviously, the experiments happening. And then I put the U.S. tunnel system for rails, because the other thing that, if we have a quick second, if you guys are wondering, there is something to how did they get into this? How would you not break apart the mountain? So I thought I had it in there, and maybe I did. Maybe we hit on it a little, but I thought I clipped enough of it so that you guys would hear that we did have the technology in 1972 to almost laser cut through stone.
Right. They said like a knife through butter.
Yeah. So I'm looking because I had a good note about it here. But yeah, so okay, where is it? Yeah.
Well, and I wonder if they're doing all of this at this base, what are they doing at the other 128 secret underground bases? That's something else that we'll have to definitely look into.
Yeah, 100%. And we live in an age of truth telling too. We will be talking about a lot of Stephen Greer stuff that's been happening too. But here's the thing that I had about it. So a physicist for RAND, which is a big, company that does a lot of contracting for government stuff, said in 1972 that the U.S. had the ability to tunnel across the U.S. and they were trying to create these tunnels that could move a train at 1,400 miles per hour. So if you can think of how fast that's moving down there, and they did have the technology, but they didn't know how to make the tunnels. Well, you can go and look this up. In Los Alamos, there is a patent that proves we had thermal nuclear ability to melt through rock and create super train tunnels, is what they called them. The super trains could exceed 1,400 miles per hour. The tech is somewhat like, it's like lasers. There's no extraction of anything, and it creates like a liquid base, like a liquid glass base that then it's like liquid and gas as it pushes it through. There's no excavation needed. So again, I refer it to a laser. It's like a laser, but we've all seen it now. Like, what is the big one that start CERN? It's like CERN. But you guys, we are at our cap here. So please join us back here next week. The podcast drops every Thursday. So check out, it'll take us a few weeks to get out of Podbean and Spotify. We'll be on those, and we'll be on Apple soon, but within a month, we'll be on every one. And if we're not, you guys tell us. So until then, thank you for joining us. And Holly, you wanna walk us out with a potential outro?
Yes, thank you for joining us down the rabbit hole. And like I said, if you like the rabbit hole of the ghost stories, boy, do I have a lot for you. So definitely come back and see us. We'll see you next week, guys.
Yeah, and again, leave comments. And if you have ideas that you want to hear about, leave comments. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here next week.